And joining us now to discuss is Senior Counsel for the Internet Accountability Project, Will Chamberlain. Thanks for being here tonight, Will.
Absolutely. Great to be with you, Kara.
Great. So is this a done deal? No more poison pill tactics by Twitter. It's official now?
I wouldn't say it's a completely done deal. There are still some regulatory hurdles that have to be kind of climbed over. That's why the share price isn't all the way up to the 54.20 buyout price yet. There's some small risk that the deal gets derailed, but it's very unlikely at this point. And certainly the poison pill isn't relevant at all now. The poison pill was put in place to force Elon to negotiate with the board and not try and get around them with a straight up hostile takeover offer to the rest of Twitter shareholders. But that happened, right? Elon negotiated with the board and the board agreed to accept his buyout offer. So now it's really just about the details, right? Like making sure that there's not an antitrust problem or some other regulatory problem that might get in the way of the purchase. But given that Elon doesn't own some other media company, it seems unlikely that that would actually hold up the deal.
Since I have no legal background, explain this for me. How did we go from Twitter appearing to reject Musk's offer to now seeming to accept it?
Right. So people overstated the effect of, adopting the so-called poison pill, right? That was merely, now we can look back and say, okay, that was merely a negotiating tactic, because in the absence of that poison pill, what Elon could do is ignore the board of directors of Twitter and simply make a tender offer, basically offer to buy out every single Twitter shareholder in the public markets. And through private transactions with existing Twitter shareholders, get enough shares to control the company. And basically, the Twitter board put in place a poison pill to stop him from using that particular method of taking control of the company. But it wasn't necessarily a rejection of Elon's offer, as we've just seen, because they just accepted his offer.
And of course, many people are speculating what could change now. We know what could have happened if back in the day, if Twitter was allowed to function the way it should have been allowed to, that the 2020 election could have turned out much differently. One of many, COVID-19, the government lockdowns could have turned out much differently. So is this bigger than just free speech? It's also elections and so much more of how our nation runs.
Oh, yeah, it's extraordinarily important. It really is a great day for free speech. We have now the single most important and consequential social media platform in the country. Now is going to be owned by a person who is deeply personally committed to free speech and who bought the platform to return it to its free speech roots. That's a wonderful thing for conservatives on Twitter. And, there are some people out there saying, oh, well, Elon Musk can't change Twitter. The leftism is too deeply ingrained there. And I mean, people are forgetting the guy's going to be the sole owner of the company and the CEO. And he's also started a car company and a spaceship company. I'm pretty sure, he's coming to a company that already has a monopoly over this sort of public square social media. And all he needs to do is just make the employees do what he wants. This isn't like the federal government where they have civil service protection. If they try and defy him, they'll be fired. So I'm very confident, actually, that Elon Musk will be able to make the changes in Twitter that we want to see.
And lastly, we have just about 30 seconds on the clock. A lot of Republicans, back when we had more doomsday predictions, we looked to perhaps looking at the government to maybe break up big tech monopolies. Do you think this buyout will change maybe how some on the right are looking at big tech, or do you think this doesn't change the calculus too much in that regard?
Possibly, but it shouldn't. We shouldn't have to rely on the single wealthiest person in the world to bail us out of every single situation we're facing as a political movement. And even Elon couldn't just buy Facebook, or he couldn't buy Google. Those are trillion-dollar companies. They exceed his net worth. And we should still be looking at antitrust remedies, and that really have to be done the next 3 months before the 2020 elections wind up and get going. We really need to get that done and actually take a hammer to those other companies that are also, censoring conservatives.
That's a great point, Will. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.